Welcome to episode 288 of the Grip Strip Podcast, the Dega and National Running Back Day edition of the Grip Strip Podcast. My name is Philip Matthew. I'm your host, coming off of what was a nerve wracking few hours that ended up being very fruitful in the sense of the guy who won the cup race and the team that won Sunday Night Football. So I'll take that and take those positives out of the weekend, which was a restful weekend for me generally. Uh, as always, I'm with my co-host, the iRacing Indy 500 champion, computer genius, a gentleman and a scholar, and someone whose number one draft pick had a breakout game, albeit not sure at what expense, but the fact is Travis Hunter proving why he was picked where he was and why Jacksonville spent all that capital to get him because he is elite. And you had Jimmy Smith and MJD there, so amongst others, I think Fred Taylor. I think there was a whole bunch of Jacksonville legends all there for that game, Josh. And I think there probably were times where you're wishing those guys could play, but at least you have Travis Hunter to go and root for. Um, what else is going on with you, man?
Doing great. Yeah, I mean, terrible loss history. I mean, yeah, Travis Hunter had a good game yesterday, but I mean, it was in garbage time, so I don't know if it can really even count there. So, yeah, I mean, 100 yards, 8 catches, but I mean, it's on 14 targets, so they're trying to force him the ball there. I think he actually should be corner back one. But I guess that puts in the problem is that then you don't have a wide receiver one that can catch, but we'll get into that later. But yeah, Talladega was pretty exciting on Sunday, so pretty good end to that race, I think, especially for you, Phil. And yeah, great weekend of racing overall, I think, with U.S. Grand Prix on the hand as well. So yeah, ready to get into it.
Funny, just as you were talking, and I looked at the outline, and I'm like, oh, we forgot about Coda. Well, I kind of can give you the synopsis of Coda in a few seconds. It's just like what most of our Formula One coverage has been prior to Miami of last year. Um, it's fish lips from pole dominating and getting away and winning. There you go. There's your Formula One recap for tonight. But I did forget about that. There are other things to discuss in that also because, of course, Mexico, um, they'll be racing at Mexico City this weekend, which for whatever reason on motorsport.com doesn't show or didn't show at least last week when I was making the outline. Um, it is today, conveniently. Might have missed it. Not sure. Entirely possible I missed it. But we'll talk about Talladega. We'll talk about Chase Briscoe getting his third win of 2025. Um, pretty, uh, pretty big deal for that team, that organization, after what has been a period that theoretically could be considered lean when with Martin Truex Jr., who's a Hall of Fame caliber, gonna be a Hall of Famer one day. Um, and James Small, and the more they talk about it between both Briscoe and Small, basically like we need to prove ourselves, we need to put ourselves out there, get this thing done. Um, what Gabe Hart said today at the Monday victory celebration at the shop, what Joe Gibbs said in Victory Lane, saying that Chase Briscoe could do anything and can ask for a 10-year extension. And Briscoe was ready to say, hey, he was raising his hands like, yeah, I'll sign it. because the guy comes from eating dollar menu on Wendy's for God knows how many years and working for free. So, but dude's got 3 kids, so and he knows one of them's probably going to be a race car driver, and if he's not going to be a race car driver, he's going to be Kevin Van Dam Part Two, one or the other. Um, we'll talk about the race. There's a lot of lead changes. A lot of drivers led this race. Issues for 2 of the 3 major teams. I mentioned Gibbs having 2 cars. We'll get into the final 4, but we'll mention the other 2 major teams and their issues that they had. Hank Hill won the fucking Xfinity race because nobody knows how to arrange a draft late in a race and try and pass that mongoloid inbred dipshit, but and gets the 19. So the 19 and the 21, I was thinking about that, are in the owners championship. And the only reason, and probably the only reason, or a major reason why Hank Hill isn't in the regular driver playoff is because he right reared Eric Almirola at Indianapolis and got himself suspended for a race. So, and lost all of his playoff points in the process. So there's something interesting how that all worked out. We'll see what happens there. Of course, Zilich, Allgaier, Zilich are both in the drivers' championship. So there's a chance that one of those 2 cars, the 2 best cars over this entire year, will not make the championship 4 on the owner's side if there is another driver's points winner here, which is entirely possible considering Buckshot Jones has a habit of winning at Martinsville and Phoenix, but by around 3 or 4 tracks that he's capable of doing that at when he isn't just being a total furniture mover. The Truck Series race was pretty cut and dried. A lot of wrecking early, destroyed most of the playoff field. But Tricon Garage had the fastest trucks, 2 trucks, and Corey Heim took played the team game, I think, in that one, instead of adding to his already historic season, and helped out Gio Ruggiero to get his first career Truck Series win and add to that list of drivers that have won their first career race at Talladega. Hopefully, for his sake, it isn't his only win like some of these other guys. But we'll talk about all that. We'll talk about Fish Lips winning the U.S. Grand Prix. And McLaren's apparent attempt to try and spit the bid here for the Drivers' Championship. Ferrari getting a second and a third and a fourth place finish this weekend. The soft tires working really well on the Ferrari. Lewis having arguably his most complete weekend he's had as a member of the Scuderia. Plenty that went on behind that. There was a sprint where the McLarens crashed with Nico Hulkenberg, which probably was a root cause for what happened afterwards. We will talk about NFL Week 7. We'll even talk about our fantasy teams and how bad they're doing. I'm won 3 leagues last year, and I'm in the process of probably not making the playoffs in any of them this year. So tells you how football is. And Baker Mayfield having one of his worst outings in recent memory when I benched Justin Herbert. That's cute. And then I had AJ Brown on the bench, and the fucker actually that's ridiculous. Anyways, yeah, we'll get in the NFL roundup. We'll talk about the World Superbike finale for 2025 at Jerez, the Central European Rally for World Rally Championship, epic MotoGP at Phillip Island, which Lee Diffie shouted out because Trackhouse got the victory. And then we'll preview the Supercars Gold Coast 500 at Surfers Paradise before we preview the F1 Mexico Mexican Grand Prix or Grand Prix of Mexico. We'll say it, yeah. Mexico preview and picks. Then the triple header at Martinsville, preview picks and who advances. It's a little more complicated, of course, in the Xfinity series than the other two series, to be fair. Josh will let us know all things going on iRacing and gaming in the sim segment, and then we'll call it a day. So let us get to the Yellowwood 500 at Talladega Superspeedway. It was, I would say for a Superspeedway race, and especially in this day and age, relatively tame. Only one somewhat major incident, which was in the middle of stage 1. And then you had, or late in stage 1, and then you had another incident that was right at the end of the race, smaller incident. But otherwise, you had a good amount of the field running. You still had 30 cars on the track at the end of the race's 40 starters. So most of the field was still out there battling on a green-white checkered to possibly get a victory. And you had the Toyotas were up there with different guys. Briscoe started on the front row yet again. Bubba Wallace, amongst others. You had the Fords, which, of course, the Penske's with Blaney and Logano. But then you had Josh Berry before he started having mechanical issues, which kind of goes back to what they've done they're doing this round with the two cars that missed out on this round. They're using them as R&D cars and sacrificing them in a sense. Gumby got sacrificed in that big wreck, and then Barry had mechanical issues, so unfortunate there. And then you had the Chevys, which, you had Trackhouse. All three of the Trackhouse cars were up there. They finished right together, actually, by the end of it. But you also had Hendrick with the 24 and the 5 up there late in the race. And the fact is, you talk about this race, you had, was it 77 lead changes amongst 27 drivers, 40 drivers started this race. So you think about that. Amongst the top 10, 7 of the top 10 led laps. And then if you get all the way down to 17th, for 13 out of the top 17 led a lap at some point during the day, including pole sitter Michael McDowell. It tells you how wide open this race was. The most laps were led by Joey Logano. Josh Berry led the second most laps, and then Kyle Busch actually led the third most laps in the race. So it's interesting. Two guys that have won at Talladega multiple times, and Logano and Busch. Berry being used kind of as a guinea pig, so to speak, but in the end, none of those guys factored in. You had a green white checkered because Carson Osavar gave a big push to, I believe it was Byron there late, and then Byron went and nailed Christopher Buescher, and then Chris Buescher hit the fence really hard. That was set up prior to that a little bit by, of course, Cody Ware being Cody Ware and bringing out a caution by blowing up. But I mean, the race, there was a lot that went on. You had the likes of Todd Gilliland, Zane Smith for Front Row Motorsports. The whole Front Row Motorsports team, they're very fast. They've been fast at the super speedways for a while now, but with this group, it hasn't been the same. They both kind of came up there. Gagson was up front before he went off the front nose of that Jones boy, triggering a multi-car wreck and having AJ Allmendinger fall out of his car, a flame, along with William Clyde Elliott II, Richard, and others. I mean, I think but when it came down to it, you had a green white checkered. Hendrick was low on fuel. You had other teams that went, and the Penske's decided on putting fuel in the 22 and the 12 to their detriment because they weren't able to make that track position back up. The Toyotas were able to hold their position and manage their fuel properly, or at least better than those other teams. Cliff Daniels assured Kyle Larson that he was good on fuel, and they were short by a good half a lap, if not more. And then you had William Byron in the end, who got nailed by Carson Osavar to trigger the wreck with Buescher, then get nailed by Osavar coming to the checkered flagging and spinning off the front nose of the Hurricane and losing a bunch of spots in the process himself. I was going to get into the separate thing of the fuel for Penske and for Hendrick, because I think that's its own story when you consider where all those guys are at right now. But somebody had to benefit from it. Del Walsh Jr. had a fast race car. He was out front. When Larson basically pulls to the side to save the whole entire field and himself, in a sense, it opened a huge hole. And Chase Briscoe has never been a great super speedway racer. Quite frankly, he's a terrible super speedway racer, just like Tony was. Yesterday, for whatever reason, looked like he knew what was going on. He knew what he needed to do. He made one mistake with Todd Gilliland late in the race there prior to that green-white checkered, where I think he didn't make a block and then stayed with Gilliland. Gilliland could not keep his car connected or keep the gaps close to not lose the momentum. So it kept on messing with the line. Definitely was amongst the people that pissed off Ryan Blaney and Joey Logano. But the Toyotas were able to connect, and Briscoe at that spot was able to make the move inside, and Keebler Gibbs probably made one of the best moves he's ever made in his career, which is a very low bar to meet, considering dude's being beaten by a guy who literally walked into this race team last December, and is watching him go to the Final Four, and then a guy who's a first ballot Hall of Famer, and Denny Hamlin's also going to be in the Final Four, and then you have Christopher Bell, who has as good a chance as any to possibly give Gibbs 3 out of 4 cars in the Final Four. But I don't like Ty Gibbs. It's obvious on this show if you've listened to it long enough. I never will. Obviously, my bias is very much there when it comes to Chase Briscoe. My journalistic integrity leaves when it comes to my favorite teams. It's our fucking podcast, so It doesn't really matter. We're not owned by anybody or, orange people, so yeah, I lost my shit when Briscoe won that race because it's like, the fuck? Chase Briscoe won at Talladega. Of all the tracks that I think he's going to win at, I'm like, it's not going to be Talladega. Not only did he make the move to win the race, he managed the runs and somehow or another got Bubba, whatever, he wasn't able to get a run and they got detached and Gibbs gave him the push he needed to get the job done. And I was so disappointed after Las Vegas last week, 2 weeks ago now, thinking about the opportunity that might have been there if he wins that race. And now Briscoe's in the Final Four with James Small and the 19 team. A lot of new parts there. You have a new driver, new engineer, there's a few new people. Thanks to Kelly Crandall on that, for Racer.com mentioning that. But at the end of the day, 3 wins on the year for Chase Briscoe. Most top 5 finishes in the series is Chase Briscoe in the 19 car. And before we talk about Penske and Hendrick, I think we have to first talk about Gibbs and how they have been the best team in this playoff, as an organization. And that includes the fact that Denny Hamlin had a nightmare in the round of 12. You still have 3 cars in this playoff with a chance, and 2 of them are going to have a chance at Phoenix in a couple Sundays from now to win a championship. But somebody told me this time last year that Chase Briscoe is going to win 3 races, dominate the Southern 500 the way he did, and win at Talladega. I would have been like, you're out of your mind and you're drinking something. But I definitely would have paid a few bucks for it. But this is much better. Clutching up here in this spot, the 19 team, they had issues. He sped on pit road. They had issues with pit stops. So the fact is, it wasn't the cleanest day. But when it came down to it, and when he needed to make a move to win the race, Chase Briscoe made that move, Josh, and is on to Phoenix with a chance to join his hero, Tony Stewart, as a champion for Joe Gibbs Racing, if he were to go out there and beat the other 3 guys at Phoenix.
Yeah, for sure. So, I mean, I think for Chase Briscoe, I think a huge part of that, being able to make that move was going down to the inside and passing Bubba Wallace, and his teammate following him there was, Kyle Larson ran out of gas on the last lap there, stumbled off, on the backstretch there, and he pulled over, which was, the right thing to do, because that wouldn't have, if he stayed there, it would caused a huge wreck there on the last lap, but he pulled over, and that opened the opportunity, that disrupted the bottom lane there, and that opened the opportunity for Chase Briscoe to go out and make that move to get alongside Bubba Wallace and pass him there for the win. So, yeah, got to give a lot of credit to Ty Gibbs for going there with him and supporting his teammate, and pushing him to the win. Go back to a quote from Austin Cindric talking about how the non-playoff teammates of each multi-car organization would try to help their teammate in the playoff, and Ty Gibbs ended up being that factor that helped Chase Briscoe go out and win the race there. On the other hand, Bubba Wallace didn't really get the help that he needed there at the end, with with the 5 running out of fuel opened the opportunity, and with Briscoe no longer behind him, he didn't have any teammates there to push him to the win there. So, for Briscoe, he's going to go to Phoenix, and he's going to have an opportunity to win the title. And by the way, first win at Phoenix back in 2022. So he's proven that he can win there. And unless Blaney has a miracle win at Martinsville, I mean, I don't think or Logano for that fact, I don't think any of the Penske cars will probably make this championship force. So it's, looking at least like it's going to be, 3 Joe Gibbs Toyotas and possibly a Hendrick car or somebody else. So, for Briscoe, I mean, it's a huge opportunity. I mean, he's going to go up against Denny Hamlin, who's, of course, very motivated to go out and win this title for himself and, for his legacy and everything, with as limited time as he, supposedly has left to race in the Cup Series. But, for Briscoe, it's a monster opportunity to go out here and win the title potentially. So, huge win for him here at Talladega today, or yesterday. So, I think a great entertaining race, like you said. I mean, we had lots of lead changes. Didn't seem like the fuel strategy stuff, I mean, it was still in play for sure, but it didn't seem as bad as before. But I think the cautions just happened to fall at the right times to where it wasn't as big of a factor. I mean, it was a factor in the finish for sure, but where it seemed like it was diluting the quality of the racing. So I think with the way the cautions fell, I mean, saw Cody Ware, of course, always good for a caution, affect the race there, and that kind of ended the single file, and then they were racing pretty hard there, 20 laps from that point on, 20 laps to go, until Christopher Buescher going out there and getting spun out by Byron there on the backstretch. So otherwise, I mean, those last handful of laps there of the race were pretty entertaining to watch. So I have to say it was a pretty good race there to watch yesterday at Talladega.
My apologies, I was just having a snack, but I was gonna go and ask this. I thought about it. I mean, Penske, they said that they short filled because of track position and then ended up having to fill before the green white checkered, and then Larson runs out. Not sure. I think Byron was going to make it. He would have been fine. But you look at their situation, and we've been talking about it. You mentioned that you didn't think fuel was as big of an issue because of the way the cautions landed, but Penske was in an all-in or out kind of situation the way they ran it, and they were trying to put themselves in the front to dictate, because that's where over the years that's how they've done their best work. And to be completely honest, that's what super speedway racing in a lot of ways is. But do you think that for those two teams, knowing their situation coming into Talladega, trying to run low on fuel, trying to run light on fuel, not get it full to get track position, and then, I mean, it how much of a factor was it for them over the entire day? Also, like in Penske's case, like I mentioned, Josh Berry falling out, I think they were using him as like the Peloton. In the Peloton, you have somebody who rides at the front to go and break the air. It's the same way as going and you're drafting off of that person. They use that in other sport, let alone in racing. In Hendrick, you lost Clyde early in the day, and then Bowman. I'm not really sure what Bowman was most of the day, so you didn't have your regular teammates. I would consider the Spire cars like Hendrick light, so it makes sense that Hocevar was up there with them, and I think Haley had a fast race car before he got destroyed. And then, of course, McDowell qualified on pole. So not having the help that could go and give them maybe more fuel mileage versus the positioning and the pressure of knowing they need to win. how much do you think that forced the hands of those two organizations and their drivers to what ended up happening for at least three of them um, once we got to the end of the race?
Well, I mean, so I guess when I mean that, what I meant by that is, I guess, with the common complaint about super speedway racing this year and last year has been the fuel, like the obvious fuel saving by the whole field. And that's from a macro point of view where, it's pretty obvious to the eyes that, yeah, there's racing four or they're running four wide, but everybody's like running half throttle and everything. That's what I meant. It didn't seem like that for the most part. And I think it's just because of how the cautions fell. But to your point there, yes, it was still an issue, obviously, because right when you run up front, you're burning more fuel in the lead than you are especially with this car, than in the draft there. And yeah, for Penske, obviously the 22. I mean, for as good at saving fuel as they've been, them running up front like that, they lost their guy in Josh Berry there had a gear issue, so he wasn't able to contend there at the end. Josh Berry not leading the way for them to let them draft and save fuel, couldn't do that. So when it came to that last caution there, or not that last caution, but the one with Cody Ware spinning out, I mean, I think that definitely affected him because, well, they have to refuel more than people behind him, and that put them kind of behind in track position there at the end of the race, where they didn't have the track position to go out there and draft up to the front, and they weren't good on fuel there, so that was definitely an issue there for sure. And I think for Hendrick, I mean, if you look at that last caution where everybody pitted, Kyle Larson gained like 4 spots on pit road, so they were stretching it too, and they chose, like, instead of, because I mean they were in the top 10, but they chose to put less fuel in it based on that positional gain. It seems like they went very, very lean on their fuel numbers. So and then he went and he was racing for the lead there for the last 20 25 laps of the race there, so that's also burning more fuel there. But I think they either overestimated or they just made an error there in how much fuel they truly had there. But yeah, they didn't have Bowman either. I think Bowman had an engine issue when the last like 30 laps through that race, they were basically just running off the pace trying to finish because they didn't have the pace due to their engine issues. So that was definitely a factor for them probably too, because they didn't have a guy to draft off of there. And so yeah, for Larson, runs out of fuel on the final lap there, and still in the championship 4, but he still has a pretty good pad, but it can all go away if one of the guys on the outside goes and wins. So that would put him in a bad position there and everything. So it's not like it's over for the guys on the outside to make it in on points there. But for Byron as well, I mean, he needed to recover from Las Vegas and was in the lead on leading on the final restart there, and ends up, after the way it all turns out, ends up spun out in the tri oval there and finishes in 25th there. So regardless of who they had as alliances or somebody there to help them, they both kind of had situation there where they weren't able to be in position to capitalize on where they were running at. So yeah, I mean, it was definitely, fuel was always going to be an issue no matter what, but to them, it definitely, they definitely ended up being on the wrong side of the coin for sure.
And it's a situational thing, I think, as much as, all the mechanics of how super speedway racing is these days. I mean, and they didn't have that much of the single file. They did run, they were running 50, what did they say, 52-second laps during in the draft, or they were running about three, whatever it was. I think they were running 3 seconds slower than what they ran in qualifying, and that was early in the race. So it's a byproduct of the car. Unfortunately, the stages itself, they make them so that you have to make one pit stop because of the length of the race. So it is what it is, and I would say that in terms of how much destruction we've seen with this car at some of these drafting races, that there was only one like multi-car incident in a 500-mile race, and only 4 cautions for cause is somewhat of a heartening thing to say or to see. Briscoe ends up with the victory over Todd Gilliland. Keebler Gibbs was third. Bubba Wallace fourth. Cole Custer fifth. Carson Osavar, Tyler Reddick, Christopher Bell, Zane Smith, Brad Keselowski are top 10. Shane Van Gisbergen was spun out after hitting a weeper on his entry on one of the pit stops, and spun out in the grass and got stuck. Was able to come back and finish 11th. Ahead of his 2 Trackhouse teammates. Joey Logano finished 16th. Michael McDowell 17th, ahead of Casey Mears, who will be making his 600th NASCAR start this weekend at Martinsville. You had 4 playoff guys, and Blaney, Hamlin, Byron, Larson, 23rd through 26th. Of course, Hamlin, glad that he won the week before because he had a really bad day, different issues throughout the day. And then, of course, Clyde finished tailback, as Rusty Wallace would say. The driver points, as we see them, of course, 2 guys are locked in. Briscoe, if there was an overall aspect to it, is 13 points ahead of Hamlin. Christopher Bell actually second overall in points. Is plus 37. Larson's plus 36 over his teammate William Byron. Joey Logano's minus 38. And then you have Blaney, who's minus 47, and then Clyde is minus 62. So you look at it this way. Let's say that Bell or Larson is only 1 point between those 2 guys. They are running 1-2 there, so then they would be for that. And then you have a very close. Those 4, the next 4 guys are all very close in points. And then you have Blaney, who's only 10 points behind Bell. So there is a mathematical possibility once you get into the race for any of those 5, I think, really, to make it happen. But if one of them is winning, then that's where I think some of those things come into play. I'll go to the Xfinity race, the United Reynolds 250, and Hank Hill goes out there, won both stages, led the most laps, gets some maximum points, gets the job done there. Allgaier finished second, and both stages finished third overall. Locks himself into Phoenix on points. Wow, the 88 car actually did not. This is the first. That's the first time that Connor Zilic has not finished in the top 10 since the other Talladega race, right? I mean, it's just insane.
I think we jinxed him. We jinxed him by picking him, and the ChatGPT pick with Larson, that must have jinxed him too.
Yeah, well, I mean, we had a bunch of picks that we can talk about them in the Truck Series race. Those picks blew up really well. 4 laps into the freaking race, no less. Yeah, I mean, Hank Hill doing what he does on super speedways, uh, getting the victory, giving the 21 a chance at an owner's championship, joining the 19 that I won in Las Vegas. So there is a possibility that either the 7 or the 88 may have a chance to win the drivers' championship, but not win the owners. Which, I mean, I guess is more prevalent in one of these two series, anyways, because there are cars that run all year that have a list of drivers in there. But yeah, I mean, Hank Hill wins. There was wreck early in the race. It took out Sheldon Creed and Sam Mayer, amongst others. Then you had another incident which Sawalich had to go to the hospital, but he's okay. He had Zilic had issues with his car, got wrecked, or whatever. Almirola was wrecked late in the race with Daniel Dye. Yeah, I mean, you had the JRM cars were up there. You had Jesse Love qualified on pole, led the second most laps, trying to win another plate race. Interesting top 10 after, Hill and Quapple Allgaier. Christian Eckes was fourth after starting third. Cesar Baccarella finished fifth. Blaine Perkins sixth. Parker Retzloff seventh. Leland Honeyman, the Wawa Chevy, was eighth. Then Smith and Love. Nick Leitz, whatever, was 11th. Garrett Smithley was 12th. Josh Williams was up there late, finished 14th. Kyle Sieg 15th. Joey Gase 16th. Jeb Burton had damage in that late race wreck. Came back to finish 17th. Star Pool. So yeah, a lot of guys up there in the top half of the field that usually aren't up there. Yeah, whatever. Hank Hill won. I mean, it's a super speedway race. There's certain things I guess you can guarantee in this world, and one of them is having that necklace inbred win super speedway races. So he did that, and hell, for extra credit, he put himself in the mix to try and win the race on Sunday too. So there's that for him.
Yeah, and he flipped off the fans that were booing him in the stands too. You see that picture on that. So hey, he's throwing it right back at him. So, but yeah, Austin Hill winning on a super speedway. Yeah, not surprising there, as well. But yeah, they run single file all the way until the end, and they try to come up with something, and it's really hard to keep him up there, or to keep him from, or it's really hard for the field once he's up there to get him out of the lead. And for the leader in the Xfinity series on a super speedway, it's really easy to be able to break whatever momentum is being generated from behind you and maintain that bubble of air. So yeah, for Austin Hill, they ran single file all the way up until about 2 laps ago, and then the field tried to try something, and it just didn't work. So yeah, he wins, keeps as a non-playoff guy now, keeps a playoff driver from potentially clinching here to get to Phoenix. So on the other hand, yeah, for Allgaier, I mean, Zilic and Allgaier clinch basically this week, so they're good to go. But for for Austin Hill. I mean, his teammate Jesse Love was up there as well, but Austin Hill just didn't, or Jesse Love wasn't able to make it happen there to clinch his spot there. So he'll have to wait another week and go to Phoenix here to see if he can make it in there. So for the rest of the guys on points that could potentially make it into the championship for I think, for Sam Mayer having the issue there at the beginning of the race there, that's pretty big, especially with the season that I think Sam Mayer has had, being fourth. If you look at the non-playoff points standings, he's fourth in the standings there, but now he's sunk here in the playoff standings, sunk to seventh, and will have to win to get in at Martinsville. So you got 3 JRM cars right now and the RCR cars, so it's looking pretty tight right now for maybe Carson Kvapil. I mean, he's got his teammate there, got a 9-point lead on his teammate going into Martinsville, so it's going to be an interesting battle there to watch and see how that plays out there. So we'll see how those, I guess, that point battle looks here at Martinsville, but certainly missed opportunity for a lot of these guys letting Austin Hill win the race here.
And they even mentioned it, Parker, which he finally was back on TV in the booth with McMurray, and they mentioned how they try to figure out a way to isolate the 21 and the 2 so that they won't get back to the front. It doesn't matter. With those 2 cars especially, it doesn't matter if they try to get isolated, they try to isolate them, they try to block them out. They figure out a way to get themselves back up front, and like a routine, and they did it there. And the 19 and 21, there's only 2 spots in the owner championship, and there's only 2 spots in the driver championship open going to this weekend's the Saturday night at Martinsville. Love is plus 40, so you would venture to believe that he would feel relatively good if he can get through the race without a disaster. Kvapil's only 11 above his teammate Sammy Smith. Of course, Sammy Smith doesn't have to worry about his ride. Carson Kvapil's not going to have a full-time ride next year. Buckshot Jones, minus 20, needs to go out there and win, probably. Sam Mayer is only won once this year, was like Josh was saying. I mean, outside of the 88 and the 7, the 41 was the most competitive car after them for a good amount of the season, and then I think they've fallen off. Now, granted, the announcement of moving to Hendrick Chevys next year, and then Ford probably not willing to provide full support, which isn't that surprising considering they don't put that much effort and energy into Xfinity or the trucks. Those things all might be coming together and costing Sam Mayer in this spot. And then Creed, of course, would have to do something he's never done, which is win in an Xfinity car at least. And then, I mean, in terms of the owners' point standings, you have the 21, who's actually third overall, and then the 19, which is fifth overall. They're locked in. And then you have the 88, which is 12 points out of the 7. And then the 2 is the first car outside of that. So, I mean, essentially, like I was saying with, like, say, Buckshot Jones, he goes out there and wins, then either of the 88 or the 7 would miss the owner title there. based on that. So that would be pretty weak, I would say. But we'll see what happens with that. Truck Series ran, of course, on Friday evening. Love's RV stops 225. That race was 7. They had 7 cautions for 29 laps. 3 multi-truck incidents, 2 within the first 13 laps of the race, 1 late in the race. You had Norm Benning on fire. So you had that. We were talking about the picks, and I'm look back, and this one's a great one. You picked Daniel Hemrick, I picked Grant Enfinger. Grant Enfinger finished dead last. Daniel Hemrick finished 34th out of 36. So that sucked. And then Parker Kligerman, usually a great super speedway racer, had issues, finished 26th. JJ Early, in a decent ride for once in his career, finished 13th. So all these guys finished behind Chris Wrong. And then you had Ty Majeski. Ty Majeski got in one of the wrecks. That was the only pick of all of those that actually seemed to do anything. And his truck was damaged, finished 3rd in that deal. Lane Riggs from tailback was able to come back to 5th. And then Ankrum was 6th. You had Carruth in 9th, Caden Honeycutt in 10th. These are all, of course, behind Ruggerio and Heim. So those were the playoff guys. And I mean, Ruggerio led the most laps, dominated one stage 2. Carruth won stage 1, made a good move late in that stage to go and get that stage win. You had Tanner Gray led double-digit laps. Ben Rhodes led double-digit laps. But, I mean, this race was really Gio Ruggerio's to win or lose. Corey Heim, I think, could have made a move or tried to pass him. He's done that before in the past, especially when he was at Kyle Busch Motorsports. He was willing to sell out his own teammate, but in this spot, he decided against that, went for the team victory there and helped Gio Ruggerio get a first career Truck Series win. Kid who's likely going to win the Rookie of the Year in the series. He's been strong for a good amount of this season, and I think is a fact somebody who's going to be a factor next year in the Truck Series. But with some new teammates, and of course Jeff Stankiewicz moving over to that organization too, which is a huge get. So there you got Caden Honeycutt moving over there next year. You got Stankiewicz coming in. Of course, you have Zippy, Scott Zipadelli still there. Who knows what Corey Heim's doing? So they're making a lot of moves, Tricon, to be a really competitive, to continue this run that they've been on with Corey Heim, with other drivers. And I think Gio Ruggerio might be the biggest beneficiary, and he proved that on Friday with a great performance at Talladega.
Yeah, great first win for Giovanni Ruggerio there. Yeah, I mean, I totally agree. I think next year he'll be a threat to contend for the championship there in that series. So, yeah, good win for him. Obviously running up front, won the pole. Got a great push from his teammate there in Corey Heim there to win the race. I mean, I think Corey Heim's trying to win himself, but he was committed to his teammate there at the end. And I feel like this series compared to what we see in Xfinity and in Cup. It's kind of hard to really move forward there to get a chance to steal a win there. So yeah, great push from Corey Heim in that one. I mean, some of the other drivers in this field were trying to make something happen at the end. Corey LaJoie tried to make something happen. Raja Caruth was trying to make something happen there at the end, but they both weren't able to pull through there at the end. I mean, Ben Rhodes also was trying to make something happen, but just didn't work out there for him with the last restart there, or before that final caution there. Ben Rhodes was having a chance there, and then wasn't able to come through with it. So it's going to be interesting to see how this playoff field finishes out here. I mean, still pretty tight for certain guys. Caden Honeycutt, Ty Majeski on the cut line there. So looking to see how they can respond to it there. I mean, I think also Lane Riggs, terrible run there as well for him. Finished 5th, so well, not a terrible run, but certainly in points. On the outside, looking in after we thought that Lane Riggs would be one of the challengers to Corey Heim, and there's still the potential. I mean, Martinsville's coming up, but there's still the potential that he doesn't make the cut there. So definitely going to be interesting to watch as we go to Martinsville for some of these guys that are on the outside or on the cut line. But for Ruggerio, I mean, definitely agree. I think he should be a contender here next season.
I mean, this is a momentum builder here. A couple of weeks to go in this season. It's always a Truck Series is a weird schedule, and I mean, next year they'll start with Daytona and then they'll be at St. Pete. So but Tricon has shown that they have great speed in their trucks, so on the road courses. So it's go out there, win a super speedway race, Daytona. If you can go out there and win at Daytona, you're locked into the playoff, and then you get to free roll for the rest of the regular season. And the Tricon team is building a powerhouse in that series. You're gonna have Majeski in the flagship truck for Thor Sport for whatever that's worth. You're gonna have certain people at the Chevrolet in the Chevrolet camp. Not sure who as of yet, but with Spire probably, and then you have and I guess Nice to a lesser extent, but then you have of course Dodge with Colleague and Butterbean up there. But I think Tricon, it's going to be hard. It's the same way as like we think that it's almost impossible that Corian could give it away, pull a Denny and give it away. But, anything can happen in racing, I guess. Okay. So, let's go to the points here. So Caruth is plus 14, Ankrum plus 8, Caden Honeycutt plus 5 over defending series champion Ty Majeski. Lane Riggs is minus 6, so he's a further point behind Honeycutt. Easiest way, of course, to guarantee yourself is win. Hemrick and Enfinger have to. That's the only way that they're going to get there. For the likes of Majeski or from Caruth all the way through Lane Riggs, there's math that can work in their favor with good stage points and good decisions to get themselves into the mix for points, because there will be 2 spots probably at a minimum that get in on points come the end of the night there. And then, so we'll go to Formula One, the U.S. Grand Prix in the sprint. Mentioned that the McLarens ended up crashing with Nico Hulkenberg and knocked them both out of the race, which then allowed Verstappen to win by what is it? It says by just under 0.4 of a second there, but I don't think it was that. And then Carlos, so yeah, it was Verstappen over Russell and Sainz. Lewis finished fourth, just out of his teammate. Leclerc, Albon sixth. Sonoda and Antonelli, so rounding out the points. So Williams, Red Bull, Ferrari. So 4 teams represented in the top 8 there. Red Bull, Mercedes, Williams, Ferrari, all represented there in the points. And then everybody else scrapping there. Alonso was knocked out there in the first lap. Lance Stroll just crashed right into Esteban Ocon like an imbecile. Then in the Grand Prix itself, Verstappen got a great start and pulled out to, I think, about around 11-second lead at one point. Strategy with the tires basically made it a one-stop strategy. Verstappen, because he was in clear air, was able to manage his tires and be able to react to any decision made. Leclerc started on softs, was able to pass Norris on the start, held up Norris for a while. In the end, Norris was able to pass him. Leclerc then ended up finishing in third. Hamilton was up there for a good amount of the race early, and then I don't know if it was because of when he pitted or what went on that he lost so much time and was just over a second ahead of the current world championship leader, Oscar Piastri. In fifth, Russell, Sonoda, Hulkenberg, Bierman, all who spun out trying to avoid Sonoda on a double move he made. And Alonso, your points paying finishers. Sainz crashed into Kimi Antonelli and ended up parking his car just in front of the pit entrance. Pierre Gasly had issues. Colapinto didn't listen to a team directive, team order. Bortoletto had I forget what weekend, Isaac Hadjar, who crashed in qualifying there. So, I mean, I think the story here is Verstappen, the momentum that they've built here recently at Red Bull to make the car even more, whether it's stable or better or whatever it is for him, so that he's out there going and putting down these super fast one-lap pace and then being able to get away and just dictate races the way that essentially for the last 4 years, the better part of the last 4 years, this dipshit has done. But now it's more impressive in that McLaren pulled out to this huge lead. They've won the constructors title. So that's already out the door. So now their focus at this point is to win the drivers' championship. That's their sole focus. And of course, yes, they have 2 drivers that are competing for it. But in the end, you basically have 2 against 1, and you're getting beaten by the 1. Of course, that 1 being the first ballot Hall of Fame F1 driver who only, there's only 3 other people in the history of Formula One that have won more championships than this guy. So, I mean, is it possible? Yes. Is it probable? I don't know. But Fish Lips is 40 points behind Josh, and it seems more plausible that he could go and pull the epic comeback and win a 5th consecutive title than it seems that the McLaren duo of Piastri or Norris are going to go out there and win their maiden drivers championship. Might be one of the more embarrassing collapses in the history of sport if that were to take place. But do you foresee, what do you foresee going on now that we are going to have this America's swing? They're going to go to Mexico this coming weekend. They'll have a gap. They'll then go to Brazil. They'll be going to Vegas. You'll have a couple of Middle East races as well. The Red Bull seems to be hitting on all cylinders at the end of their run with Honda, and Max is as comfortable as he's looked in a while.
I think for Verstappen, what he needs to do, I mean, I think the answer is simple, and he's going to have to win out. I think that's going to be the opportunity for him to win the championship. Is he's going to have to win out, which we've seen what the McLarens can do here throughout the season. They've been fast, but lately it's been Red Bull. Now that Max is comfortable in this car again, he's putting on pole, like you said, and running his pace on the field. So he's got to go win the Mexican Grand Prix. Got to basically sweep this whole round of the races on the American continent, and then win the 2 Grand Prix in the Middle East with Qatar and Abu Dhabi. So I mean, if he wins out, I mean, I think there's definitely that opportunity. I think you can close out the gap there with currently 40 points out on the points lead to 26 points. I'm sorry, 26 points for oh no, I'm reading this wrong. Yeah, it is 40 points for Verstappen. So there's still time for it. And I think the other fact is that Piastri and Lando Norris missed out on the points from the sprint because they both crashed out in this race or in the sprint race. So which they earned points from that too. And it would be a little bit tougher for Verstappen, of course, still having a perfect weekend, but he would still have points to make up on if they didn't have that opportunity there for Piastri and Norris to get in that crash, which, I mean, they talked about blaming on Nico Hulkenberg, and I'm like, well, your guy tried to do an over-under, and just for, to me, it looked like Piastri tried to do an over-under on Norris into turn 1 and just completely forgot that Nico Hulkenberg was there on the inside, who was also trying to defend from Alonso. I mean, it looked like a NASCAR restart at Codas. That's what it looked like there. So that's kind of the deal there with Piastri and Norris. You don't want to wreck your teammate there, and they did in the sprint, and those points could come in hand there. However many points they get from that, or that they could have gotten from that, could make the difference here in 6 weeks. So we'll see what happens here in the next couple of races here. Max is going to have to continue to have perfect races here to have a shot. But I think for Piastri and Lando Norris, they've got to figure out a way to settle the title between themselves without also compromising the chance for both of them to win the title. So, I mean, obviously, Norris cut the gap there a little bit by finishing in second. There, he grabbed the last spot. That was an entertaining battle to have on there with Norris versus Charles Leclerc for second and third there. That was a pretty interesting battle to watch, and that could also be important in the title chase with Piastri having finished fifth in this race versus Norris finishing in third, now finishing in second. So those points could be all the difference for Lando in the way out, but they can't have mistakes like what they did on Saturday during the sprint. So we'll see what it looks like here in a couple weeks, but those are going to be the things that you look back on. If they both were to lose the title and Max comes out and makes this tremendous comeback after the turmoil that they've had this season with they fired Christian Horner, the swap with the two teammates at the beginning of the year for Liam Lawson and Yuki Tsunoda there as well. That's a thing that affects the team. The car not being as good in the middle of the season, and now they still have a very, I think, mathematical chance at least to win the title.
And furthermore, they actually have a chance to finish second in constructors, which is essentially with one car, which is insane. But essentially what Red Bull's been doing for however many years. See what happens at the Circuito de Hermanos Rodriguez this coming weekend for the Formula One Grand Prix of Mexico. The drivers standings 40 points Piastri to Verstappen, 14 between Piastri and Norris. Of course, Russell fourth, Leclerc fifth, Hamilton sixth, then Antonelli Albon, Hulkenberg getting his first points finish since his podium at Silverstone. And then Isaac Hadjar is only a point ahead right now of Carlos Sainz. There's only 9 points separating 9th all the way through 13th, 11 to 14th. So reasonable amount of points there. And then in the team standings, I mentioned, of course, McLaren, but Mercedes is 7 points ahead of Ferrari and 10 points out of Red Bull. Oh, that's crazy. For second in the constructors, Toro Rosso's 3 points ahead of Aston Martin and 13 ahead of Sauber. Haas is only 11 behind Sauber, so 24 points back in 9th. So still plenty to play for. We're getting towards the end of the early Monday night football game, or is going to end. Detroit is going to win over the Tampa Bay Buccaneers here. And so big win for them, considered Green Bay continues to win, and Chicago's on a run. Minnesota's kind of scuffling, but they're at 500. Detroit needed to hold serve. You look at some of the other games I mentioned earlier with I'm going to score 200 points and I'm still going to lose. Yeah, that's pretty god-awful. I'm losing to Wilson. Then Joe is going to beat Steven. It's a battle of two teams that are in the top 4 at the moment. Luke is ahead of you, Josh, there. He's going to have looks like high point of the week. Matt is going to beat Vic. And then Jeff is actually going to get his first win of or second win of the season over who was the leader going into this week. But when you don't have your number one pick in because of your number one pick is on a bye, one of your top receivers is out. You lose Mike Evans, of course, during this game. And then you have probably your third best running back on the bench, or second best running back on the bench. He still wasn't going to win. There was really no math that was going to help him. And that's going against a team in Jeff that had Tua Tagovailoa have less than a point. He had 0.98 of a point. So he didn't even have a full point. He had 100 yards passing, 2 interceptions, so lost in terms of fantasy points. He had 5 points for the yards, -6 for the interceptions. Ran for three rushing attempts for a quarter, 3/4 of a point. Then rushing yards, he had 6 yards, so 6/10 of a point there, and then passing first downs, 5 of those. So yeah, 0.98. And he had, and what's crazy is he had AJ Brown, Keenan Allen, Pacheco all on the bench. So it could have been an even bigger blowout. But yeah, I mean, for actual football, the Niners go out on Sunday Night Football against Atlanta. GK makes his return. Wide receiver, of course, still missing. Pearsall. Ayuk still hasn't come back yet. Mac Jones making another start because Purdy's out. And it became a Christian McCaffrey game. And he imposed his will and destroyed and took the life out of Atlanta. Devon Diablo falling out of the game early didn't help matters for them. What NBC anointed the National Running Backs Day. They got 3 velvet, I guess, robes from Marshalls or something, or insert whatever clothing store that look like Leisure Suit Larry specials, and then a really bad chain that you probably could get at Five Below. I'm sure that'll really turn Olivia Culpo on to go and make another one with the McCaffrey. It's not like they wouldn't be anyways, but Niners go out there, get the victory, played hard, defense played great for the most part, considering they were able to keep Bijan Robinson in check. To be 5-2 with the amount of injuries they have is just insane, but shows Kyle Shanahan's coaching ability. He can't close games in big spots, but he is a really good coach otherwise. That division's going to be tough to win, though. Seattle's going to be a hard out. Rams are really, really difficult. Arizona, even with Jacoby Brissett at quarterback, are putting up fights in games. So that division is going to affect, they're going to affect each other as much as anything there. The Miami Dolphins look like trash. You had the Jets that are on their way to 0-16 or 0-17. While the New England Patriots look like they're back to being a factor. Indianapolis has the best record in the NFL. with Indiana Jones, and then the guy who's probably the MVP. They'll give it to a quarterback because it's become a quarterback award, but Jonathan Taylor's the MVP of the league because their whole entire offense is predicated on what he does. Period. End of story. He had 3 touchdowns against the Chargers, who look like the Savannah Bananas out there in those ugly yellow uniforms. They're freaking grotesque. The Giants figured out a way to blow a 19-0 lead in the fourth quarter and proceeded to give up 33 points in a quarter, which is something rarely seen, I guess, but it is the NFL in 2025. At least they weren't Rutgers going and getting anally annihilated by Oregon in their own house 56-3. But hard to compete that way when and you can't make stops, and then you can't advance the ball enough without help to keep the ball away from Denver. Is really bad look. Justin Fields was so ineffective that he got benched for Tyrod Taylor, and even he threw a pick 6. So yeah, the Jets are fucking terrible. Cowgirls score a lot of points, can't stop anybody, but because Jaden Daniels went down and they didn't have any wide receivers, they were able to fade that. Their Eagles keep on being like cardiac kids, holding on for dear life, winning games as defending Super Bowl champions. Kansas City destroys the Raiders in an early window game. And Rashi Rice got out of his Merc charges, but he's back and now gives the Kansas City Chiefs an extra dimension that they didn't need to be better. Josh, I'll open the floor to you in terms of your thoughts and what your Jags endured in at Wembley this past weekend against the LA Rams. Watching no Puka Nakua, but Matthew Stafford literally throw, I guess, skinny post or whatever, skinny flag, whatever, up jump balls to Devontae Adams to get 3 touchdowns.
I mean, the Jaguars are trying to emulate the Rams in their coaching, which in their team building, right? Because they have Liam Cohen coming from the Sean McVay system, and you got James Gladstone with the whole, F them picks mentality there, and everything. And the Rams, they went up against the Rams. The Rams are like, okay, we'll show you what it's supposed to look like, and they went out and just dominated them there. And Trevor was off in the beginning and had players around him not play well, and all the mistakes that they've made in the first half of this season have come up in the worst way on Sundays. So yeah, that was pretty bad showing there by Jacksonville, and they don't have pressure up the middle right now for whatever reason. Trayvon Walker's hurt. Josh Allen can't do anything on the other side, so they need to trade for defensive tackle. Probably that's probably the best thing that they need to do to help the defense be more consistent there. And I'd probably trade for a defensive lineman to help generate something there, because the depth there hasn't been great on that. So offense, got to catch the ball and got to be consistent. So hopefully they can run the ball more. So hopefully we can get back to just running the ball. Like I'd run the ball as much as possible. That's what I would do. So like we should be setting the record for attempts in the for rushing attempts in a season. So that's what I would do. So hopefully you can get back to running the ball more efficiently and go and do that that way. So they have the Raiders coming up. They got a bye week, so good time to rest up and get healthy. And they got the Raiders on 2 weeks from now, so which they play in Las Vegas, and then they go to Houston Texans, and I think they got the Chargers at home after that. So we'll see if they can pick up where they left off after Kansas City. And I mean, it's the easier schedule on the second half of the season, so hopefully they can figure things out and everything. But they have to do it quickly there. So still have a chance. I mean, they still have a chance to get a wild card spot. We'll see how they play. I'm still not a buyer in Indianapolis. But we'll see. We'll see how much that changes. They dismantled the Chargers. I mean, they dismantled a lot of teams, but I mean, they did lose to the Rams. So we'll see if Indianapolis how they do against some of the more top tier teams coming up here. So be interested to see how that plays out there. But I think a wild card spot is still in play for Jacksonville. Fantasy, I mean you saw in the text thread, if you're looking at your phone, I mean, I got the 4th highest points in this league, and I'm like in the bottom half in the cellar. It's funny how me and Vic on draft night, the projections said that we were going to be the top 2, and we're the cellar dwellers. So that's awesome there. So to rectify this, I've proposed a trade to Wilson to trade Jamar Chase for me to acquire Jamar Chase in exchange for Nick Cross, the cornerback for the Colts. I can see think this is ridiculous. And Brian Burns, the defensive lineman for the Giants. But I mean, it's not, because in total points, you look at the point values. I mean, Jamar Chase is like 33rd, Nick Cross is 34th, and Brian Burns is like 38th. So I'm giving you I'm basically trading my defense for a wide receiver, which I think, in a normal league, I think, if you have a good, really, really good defense, the minimum I think that you'd want for that is like a WR2. So I'm just going to go for WR1. I don't think he'll buy this, because he's probably just going to be like, what the hell are you doing trading for a defensive back and a defensive lineman? But I mean, according to the Trade Hub, it says he needs a defensive back and a defensive lineman, and I'm giving him 2 of the best players in those 2 categories in exchange for the best wide receiver. So I think that makes sense. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, I can tell you think this is ridiculous, but I mean, I think the math checks out there. So we'll see what he thinks about that. But and I need wide receiver help there. So I mean, I was thinking about doing the same thing. I was like, maybe I should trade Jonathan Taylor for Patrick Mahomes or something like that to you, or my defense to your best skill player or something like that. So I thought about this, but we'll go for Jamar Chase, because I do need some wide receiver help. And I mean, it does say that he's one of the most traded players in fantasy according to the trends. So we'll see how that works out. But I mean, yeah, it's getting more patchwork because of injuries and stuff. I mean, really got screwed by Malik Neighbors being injured, and with him and Jackson Dart, that would have been a pretty good combination there. But just 3 weeks in a row of guys just balling out on the opponent's side. With you had Mahomes ball out, and who's the other guy you have on? Hollywood Brown, I think, or whoever your wide receiver that you played on the Chiefs, from the Chiefs like 2 weeks ago when they played the Jags. And then last week, Scattaboo and Bijan destroyed me, and now Jahmyr Gibbs and Justin Herbert have taken me back to the cellar. So I had Jonathan Taylor, but he's I guess not enough right now. So yeah, we'll see.
And stranger things have happened. Maybe one of Wilson's kids gets a hold of his phone while he's on the app and accepts the trade. And you get me when I see it immediately and I just put it through. There is that. It's in a lot of ways I would consider that trade similar to Tate Fogelman winning at Talladega once upon a time. The way I feel about my team at this point this season, if it wasn't for Kermit the Frog, basically I have dog shit after that. I haven't gotten any real productivity out of anybody else. My quarterback drafting strategy and hedging on a lot of younger players was definitely a poor decision on my part. Taking on guys that are that have injury histories early in their career, is blown up in my face. I traded with Matt. I traded Derrick Henry to go and kind of shore up the wide receiver situation with Tat McMillan. I got rid of what's his face, Rattler, because I know that even though he did win and Rattler got him 21 points. The notion is I don't believe that that's sustainable. I don't think. And now he'll get Lamar Jackson back, it looks like. And he left Micah Parsons on the bench when he had his 3-sack game. That's brutal. But he got 24.5 out of whoever the guy is, this Landman guy. He had Trey McBride, got 30 points out of him. He's got double digits points out of basically everybody. What's crazy is Vic had Joe Flacco, along with Rashee Rice and Javonte Williams, and then Demario Davis. All of them played really well, and then the rest of his team basically shit the bed. At Chase Brown, missed out on Chase Brown, missed out on Michael Pittman as well, so unfortunate. We'll see. Maybe because we're cellar dwelling here, I can maybe try and convince Vic to make a move of some sort. It's the end of the first quarter and Seattle's already up 14-0. Jackson Smith and Jigba already has a touchdown. No shocker there. Darnold, one pass TD. Not sure where the other. So the rush touchdowns. Charbonnet, 4 rushes, 18 yards, and a touchdown. So there is that. Stroud is only 2 for 3. Nick Chubb has 2 yards on 2 carries. So that's a problem. I'm going to score 200 points, which, you're talking about your situation, Josh, and score a $195 and run into 240 plus point scores and a 32-point performance from Daniel Jones. Jack Campbell, 26.5. Um, the Denver DB there. And what's even more insane is that he left points. There's a he could have gotten a few more points if he had played Olave and Aaron Rodgers. So it could have been even worse. Um, uh, but yeah, I'm gonna lose. I think I'm gonna end up staying in seventh. I'll fall further behind points wise. I've lost 2 games in a row. I'm in the one spot out of the wild card round at the moment. So no, I mean the fact is, even for as bad as things have been, right now I'm we're only a game out of a wild card spot. Um, and then we're only, what is it? In your case, 2 games. I'm 1 game back from being in the top 4. So, I mean, we're getting through this first half of the season now. Now you're going to get it's the double round robin part of this deal. For me and Faithful and the team that I have the trophy over there for, I'm going to fall to or stay in 9th with my 4th consecutive loss. Points scoring has come at a minimum, seemingly. Points against, I have the second points against, so that's definitely a not great. It's going to be very difficult to make the playoffs in this league for sure. And then the team that was auto drafted that shares this podcast's name is well on its way. Just destroyed the second place team by over 100 points in that one. So, and I'm working on trying to get some additional players on this team to put us even further ahead. I mean, this auto draft, I think. I think I picked up Quidshawn Judkins myself, but and I might have picked up Romeo Dubs, but this auto draft had got me Jonathan Taylor, Bijan Robinson, and Sam Laporta, Lad McConkey. So that's a pretty strong deal there. I'm curious. I have to go and team log. Yeah, so trying to think. Yeah, so Garrett Wilson. I had Bo Nix. Jonathan. Yeah, so Jonathan Taylor, Laporta, Bijan, Garrett Wilson, Lad McConkey. Had Kyler Murray, but of course he got hurt. Kamara. He's still on the team. Yeah, so I've picked up Daniel Jones, Matt Stafford, Quidshawn Judkins, and Romeo Dubs on this team. Then I've been streaming kickers. I've also been streaming defenses to get to where I'm at. And this one's probably, I have a hard time believing it's going to be very interesting by the end because nobody else, I think, is really participating. There's really only one other team that is participating in this league, so guess we'll take it for what it is. All right, so yeah, Niners play Houston this weekend. Early game, so it's going to be kind of difficult. We'll see how they can show up there. All right, let's get in the roundup here. World Superbikes finale. Johnny Ray retiring. However many world championships. Toprak Raskatlioglu becomes a 3-time world champion. He hurdles that number 1, no less. So, yeah, BMW, Rascal goes and wins his 3rd World Superbike title as he moves to MotoGP. Johnny Ray retires, so it's a big moment. Baliga sweeps the weekend. Rascal finished 2nd in race 1 and 3rd in race 2. Alvaro Bautista finished 3rd in race 1, 2nd in the Super Pole, and 2nd in the race 2. The standings, Toprak Rascal ends up with a 13-point win, victory there. Won 21 of the 36 races. Nicolo Balega won 14. So only Andrea Locatelli was the only person that won a race of any kind during this season. Out of 36 races, Rascal was on the podium 31 times, Balega 32. The wins were really the difference. The one third place finish was probably the difference there, those 13 points. So insane to think that that's where Gerloff ended up finishing 15th in points. So we'll see how that goes for him next year. In WRC, Kankinen, Hailston Crows, Toyota's 5th consecutive manufacturer title. Central Europe as Toyota Seals, yeah. So Cali Rovampera gets the victory for gets his 3rd win of the year. And the results. So they have 2 races to go after this. 2 rallies, Japan and Saudi. Got through here. So yeah, Cali Rovampera wins by 43.7 seconds over teammate Efren Evans. Tanak, the best Hyundai, 49.3 seconds back. Takamoto Katsuda, 4th for Toyota. Sami Pajari, 6th. Issues for Sebastian Ogier, Gregoire Munster, amongst others there. So unfortunate for those 2 guys. Oliver Solberg, another one, had issues in this race, but still was able to. He actually, he didn't win. Yeah, he was racing he wasn't in a WRC2 category. So yeah, he had issues too. So now the points heading into Japan in a few weeks' time sees Efren Evans take a 13-point lead on Sebastian Ogier, and he's tied with Ogier and Cali Rovampera. So Toyota has won the constructors, and one of those 3 is going to be the driver's champion. Tanak 4th, Neuville 5th. There. get to MotoGP was, of course, at Phillip Island. Raul Fernandez wins his first career MotoGP race, racing for Trackhouse and Aprilia by 1.418 seconds over Fabio Di Giannantonio. And Marco Bezzecchi giving two Aprilias in the top three. Alex Marquez was fourth. Pedro Costa fifth. Luca Marini, Alex Rins, Brad Binder, Enea Bessaini, and Pol Espargaro. So giving Red Bull KTM the four riders in the top 10. And then, so definitely a different type of result than what has been the majority of the year. Pecco Bagnaia fell out of the race, along with Joan Mir, John Zarco, and Jack Miller in his home race. We get to Moto 2. And Senna Aegis, the Australian winning his home Grand Prix. Big for him. David Alonso, Morera, rounding out your podium. Joe Roberts finished 13th in the race. So the standings heading into the next round. Marquez is nearly 100 points ahead of Bezzecchi, so he's fine. Bezzecchi's only 8 points ahead of Pecco Bagnaia, so that actually still raced for third. Acosta has a gap 17 over Di Giannantonio, who has an 8-point lead on his teammate Morbidelli. There's that. Then that's for riders, teams. Ducati, Lenovo, so versus Grassini and Ducati, Red Bull, Fanta. Ducati, those Aprilia's 47 points ahead of KTM there. And then I don't know what the P, so I guess that means that Marc Marquez is going to get a BMW. Gonzalez, Manuel Gonzalez, currently he's up by 2 points over Morera in the Moto 2 championship. Canet, Altus, Dixon, your top 5. Aegis moves up to 8th in points after his win. Alonso moves up to 10th after a second place finish. And Roberts is 13th in rider points. And they'll be at Sepang this coming weekend. Supercars will be at the Gold Coast this coming weekend. The Boost Mobile Gold Coast 500, which will be at Surfers Paradise, the circuit that once upon a time hosted Indy cars in a longer version. This now is there's been different versions of this race, but now this is the first race of the Supercar Finals. So we'll see how that goes. What it does for the new era, blah blah blah. So there will be 3 races. You have Surfers, then you have Sandown, the Sandown 500, and then Adelaide for the Supercars finals. Driver, what is it? Oh, so how the finals works and how the rep car super, yeah, so everything to race for, stakes are higher. Ever is working, who's fighting the final system. Driver a top 4. So yeah, so after you have the top 10, so then 3 drivers are eliminated. Okay, so 3 drivers are eliminated after the first race, after the Gold Coast. Then after Adelaide, or no, so there's 10. See, that makes no. I don't understand how. I know 10 drivers, only 7 will leave in the hunt. Okay, so 3 drivers are eliminated after Gold Coast. After Sandown, or yeah, so then after the Sandown 500, they'll be down to the top 4. Whoever does the best of those 4 at Adelaide, whatever, will be the champion there. So the advantage goes in terms of points goes to Brock Feeney for winning the regular season, Matt Payne for winning the Enduros, but it's less than 100 points between Cam Waters and Brock Feeney after was an enormous gap. And it's a little bit more, there's a few more points in that to Brody Kostecki. It's very close, so every position counts there. All right, so let's get into Grand Prix of Mexico. Let's see here. I picked first, so Josh, you get first picks here. F1 Grand Prix of Mexico. Josh, is it fish lips?
Yeah, I think I'm gonna pick Verstappen to win here in Mexico City, and I'll go with Norris finishing second, and go with George Russell finishing third.
Podium. I will concur with the fish lips pick to win with I'm going to go a little different here. I'm going to say Piastri second, and I'll go with Eclair, or you know what? Who cares? I'm going to go Lewis, round out podium. I think Red Bull has the advantage. Of course, Mexico City is very hard to pass. You have the low, they have the high altitude, so it's a bigger stressor on the engines and on the cars in general. And because these cars and all these components have been run multiple times already at this point, could be a little more attrition. It will be hard to pass, though. So yeah, so yeah, Chase Elliott, Kyle Larson, double whammy there. Feels like press your luck gone to hell. All right, so we will go to the trucks here. NASCAR trucks at Martinsville. I will go first. And I am going to say that I'm going to say that Ty Majeski goes out and clutches up and wins with wild card. Should go and bring up the entry list. Slim Jim 200. Snapping with Slim Jim. Ooh, yeah. All these people that go and do the, whether it's, I forget, what is it? Dan Soder does it. Will Sasso does the Macho Man. You got Brent Cruz in the 1 truck for Tricon, Logan Bearden for Young's 02, Clayton Green the 2 for Rehumes, Norm Benning. Butterbean will be in the Gainbridge number 7 for Spire. And blah, blah, blah. 20 doesn't have anybody listed. All right. Some guy named Alan Waller, ride buyer. Frankie Muniz back there. Connor Jones. Matt Mills, Perez Delara, Bailey Curry. Timmy Hill will be in his own 56. Casey Mears making that, historic start, or at least trying to. Oh, so there's 36 for 36, so actually you will. My wild card pick for the race on Friday will be I'll say Andres Perez, just for shits and giggles. Andres Perez, wild card. Who advances, of course, is Heim, Majeski. I'm going to say Riggs. And then the last spot will go to Raja Karuth. Josh, your picks here for who you think will win and whatever, and who will advance.
Yeah, I think for me, I'm gonna say Lane Riggs wins this race to advance. My wild card will be Brendan Queen in the 7. I think Lane Riggs, obviously, I will concur with Raja Karuth advancing. And then the last guy to advance, I'm gonna say Ty Majeski. Yeah, so I'll concur. I think we both have the same top 4 there.
All right. Hopefully we aren't a jinx on those guys. That would be bad.
Except for Heim.
Yeah, Heim, whatever. That's for next week. If he's gonna shit the bed. NASCAR, Xfinity at Martinsville. Josh, you get first dibs here. I'm not gonna consider the owners. I'm only really considering the drivers' championship. In terms of who's gonna win and advance and the like. So who do you see as your choice for that?
Yeah, for me, go with Yeah, I'm gonna just say I know he's the owners championship, but I wouldn't be surprised if Eric Almirola won the Xfinity race. So I will say that he's my wild card for this week. Um, and then for winner this weekend wild card, I'll go with Corey Day in the 17 there for Hendrick. And then as far as advancing, um, I'm going to go with well, Zilich and Allgaier have already advanced, so I will stick with I think Jesse Love can advance. But I don't know about Carson Kvapil. I'm not sure. I'm gonna say that somehow Sammy Smith advances in over Carson Kvapil. That's what I feel like will happen.
Yeah, that's it's plausible. Of course, Sammy Smith was up front late earlier this year, and then proceeded to try to demo derby Taylor Gray and caused a huge wreck in the process there. So, for what it was worth, so possible though for Zane. I mean, for Chan or mixing all the goddamn Smiths, Sammy Smith to go and get through. For me, points heading into, well, we'll go through some of these drivers here. You got Brad Perez driving for SS Greenlight. Brendan Queen, of course, with Brendan Queen with Colleague in the 11. And got Star Poli doing double duty. Austin Green in 32, Takuma Koga and 35 for Joey Gase. Preston Pardis running an oval. Rare instance there. Mason Maggio, 53. Are they running? They're running the Mazda MX-5s this weekend, right?
Yes. Yep.
As well. So that's also part of the reason why I think Preston Pardis is there. Annunziata, Jersey Boy. Mozak driving the Viking 99. 39 for 36. I didn't look at. See, they said trucks was they're 35 for 36. Oh, so they're short. It says short field, but then there was 36 trucks on there. So I don't know. In Xfinity, there's 39. So one vehicle will miss the race there. So for me, I am going to say that Allgaier wins to guarantee himself in the owners, even though I wasn't. And then that'll lock in Zilich that way. My wild card for the event will be be we'll just you know what? I'll just go with Austin Green. So we'll go Justin Allgaier to win and Austin Green wild card. Zilich, Allgaier, and then in terms of the Xfinity Series points, Jesse Love, and then I'll say Carson Quapple. I'll say that basically chalk. I'll go with the chalk. All right, so NASCAR Cup, last but not least, at Martinsville, the Xfinity 500 at Martinsville, what has become one of the most drama-filled races of the year, to determine the championship. 437 for 40, nobody going home. Casey Mears adding to his starts, trying to get to the 600 start mark across all three series. And 500 start to the Cup Series. Of course, we know the 11 and 19 are locked in. Mears driving for Carl Long in the 66. Will Ryan Blaney go out and win his third consecutive Martinsville fall race and get himself into the Final Four? He's been one of the best cars this year. He's had a bad round or a couple of weeks. But this is a spot where in the past I would have said no, but in this case I say yes. Ryan Blaney to win, and my wild card will be AJ Allmendinger. Because this is one of his best racetracks. Hamlin. Oh, we'll see. Hamlin, Briscoe, Blaney, and then Larson. Actually Bell. Wouldn't that be Bell? Yeah.
Yeah, they're 1 point between them.
I went with Larson, so Larson advance. I would like to be wrong on that last one and give Gibbs a chance 3 out of 4, but for the game and for the brand, they'll probably do something to make sure that doesn't happen. Josh, last but not least, playoff driver. Which playoff driver do you think gets this victory, and who wild card, and who advances?
Well, based on what happened last time at Martinsville, I'm gonna pick Denny Hamlin to. This is his lead-in to the final at Phoenix. I think they can sweep Martinsville for the season and basically prevent a new winner. So even though they don't have to win, but I don't think that they can't win. So yeah, I'm gonna go with Denny as my guy for this weekend and wild card. Wild card. I guess I'll go with I'm gonna go with Chris Buescher as the wild card there. So he's out of the playoffs, so I think that's fair to pick him there. So the guys that I have advancing, I think it'll stay the same as it is. So I think the current championship 4 with Hamlin, Briscoe, Bell, and Larson stay as is.
So we'll see how our picks work out this coming weekend at Martinsville, and then talk about it on episode 289 of the GSP as a review, of course, of those races, and then previewing Phoenix. But before we get to that, Josh, it's time for your sim segment. Let us know what's going on in the world of iRacing and gaming.
Yeah, for me, I ran a couple Talladega races over the weekend and ran some road racing on GT3 and had and Toyota GR86 as well. So had a solid run in the GR86 car. GT3 didn't go so hot, but was able to finish the race. Had an incident in the middle of it, but was able to finish. And then the Xfinity series ran. I didn't run Cup Series in iRacing, but I ran Xfinity there, and Xfinity was going well. And then I was making a move potentially for the win there to to position for the win, and got caught up in the big one. So thought I was going to avoid it, but then ran out of room to avoid it, so had nowhere to go. So in turn 3 and 4. So yeah, that was that, and was trying to go for for potential win there. I thought I had speed, but maybe you got to be up front. Maybe that's the thing. I tried really hard to be up front, then you get shoveled to the back, then you try to make your way back up to the front. You're timing it to the right opportunity, and didn't have that happen there. So that's all right. We'll go forward and onward here. It's Martinsville on iRacing, and have opportunities there in the Cup Series and in the Xfinity car to run at Martinsville. Their NASCAR 25 is out. Still haven't played it yet, obviously, for PlayStation out of commission right now. So we'll wait and see on that one. Might have to talk to Joe about that, since his opinion might be better than mine because he hasn't played racing games in a bit, but he has NASCAR 25, so maybe I have to ask him about that on there. But yeah, this week on iRacing, obviously got NASCAR at Martinsville coming up. You got 87 car at Auto Club this week. Indy NXT at Nashville, so that might be interesting there. It'll be a draft fest, basically. The iRacing GT3 Tour at Road Atlanta this week. Arkham Renards at Chicagoland. Toyota GR86 at Autodromo Hermanos Rodriguez there. GT3 I guess Regional Tour Pacific at Phillip Island. GT3 Regional Tour at Algarve for the European Tour. And then Global MX5 at Tsukuba Circuit. Their LMP2 Fixed Challenge at the 24 Hours of Le Mans Circuit. Prototype GTP Challenge also at that circuit. iRacing IndyCar Series at Red Bull Ring. Got that there. The class, Gen 4 Cup at Las Vegas. That might be interesting there. Yeah, I think that's all the races there. So lots of action on iRacing. Of course, Open Wheels 500 coming out soon. So I think I'll try to make an entry. I've got to look at the schedule for that because I got to make sure I'm actually free for qualifying for that. Because qualifying's on like December 7 or whatever. I think the first day is a Saturday, and then December 7 is the qualifying final. So I don't know if I'm going to be able to go to that because I'm going to the Bucks Saints game with some friends, going to Tampa for the Buccaneers Saints game on December 7th. So if I enter this and I don't have a good entry or don't have a good qualifying run, I probably won't be able to do the bump day. But that's okay. We'll see how that goes, because that's a tough event to enter, but we'll see how, because I know the schedule is in December this year as it was in November in previous years. So we'll see if how many people enter and how well the setup. They already had one test session I think last week, and I forgot about it. I probably could have done it, but I think I wasn't sure what time it would be around, and I didn't know if I'd have time for it, but might have to look at the time charts and see how I've been running in Indianapolis in the IndyCar versus what the time charts, what their sheet says for that for their first test session, and compare lap times. So we'll have to see there. But it's probably worth at least making an entry for that one. So we'll go from there. Maybe see if there's some other IndyCar people that I know on the iRacing community that might be able to help or collaborate with for that. So we'll see how that goes. But yeah, that's all I got for sim racing segment this week. Of course, JP Huffine for Twitter page, of course, Twitch TV/usailor2 for the streaming content whenever that happens, and then for the YouTube page at Gripster Podcast on YouTube for that on there. So yeah, hopefully Martinsville ends up being a good race, and we have a good Final Four for all three NASCAR series, and hopefully Jags can get back on track in a couple weeks as well. So we'll see how that goes. Forgot to even mention that the Gators finally fired their coach over the weekend, even after a win, which is quite funny. So at least there's a little bit of good news there. So we'll have to find a new guy, get Lane Kiffin or somebody like that, Gators, and we'll see how that goes. And hopefully they play hard the rest of the year. So yeah, we'll hopefully have a good weekend of racing here coming up, and we'll be able to talk about it.
And hopefully, I agree as well. Looking for the good Final Four in terms of the drivers that are involved in that in all three series, because the track that they're going to is not great. So there needs to be the intrigue with the battle with those drivers, but see what happens, of course, and we'll talk about it next week. You can find us, of course, on the Gripster Podcast YouTube page, as Josh mentioned, at GSP, and then GSP 1428 as well. You can find the Gripster Podcast at philipgmatthew.com on Podbean, and you can follow me at pgmatthew28 on Twitter or pgmgsp28 on Instagram. So for Josh, I'm Phil. Thanks for listening and supporting us here on the Gripster Podcast. And, only a few weeks to go now in the racing season. Crazy to think less than 2 months left because of Formula One, of course. 2 weeks left in NASCAR. So for American motorsport, it's basically going to be over soon. World Motorsport, Formula One stretches out pretty far, so we'll still have that, and we'll have football, see what the Niners can do in Houston, see what the fantasy teams can do, and everything else going on in the world of motorsports and sports we'll talk about here on the Gripster Podcast. So for Josh and Phil, thanks for listening. Take care, and we'll see you next time.